so Robinson Rock House ruins. So I mentioned how I discovered this in 2015. The information I'm going to share with you, in 2017, at that time I was involved in the quarterly publication for Old Mecklenburg Genealogical Society, and I had an idea, as far as articles for next issue. Why not research this house and some of its owners? So at the Carolina room in the library, I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, they have files on all the prominent families of Charlotte of an alphabetical order. So when I went into the R file, I found information on this. Dan Morrill, who's a local historian, did a lot of research and published a report on this. So most of what I found are from Dan Morrill's report. But I also did go on Ancestry.com and looked up some of the census records for the original owners here. So yeah, so that's where this information I'm about to share with comes from. So in 1767, George Augustus Selwyn sold a 1,212-acre tract of land to Robert Robinson, who is the original proprietor of this land. 2 years later, King George III sold another 200-acre of land to Robert Robinson. And these two tracts overlapped a third of the property that Robinson owned. So the Robinson Rock House ruins are named after a Robinson. And he had at least two sons, John and Robert Jr. And in 1783, he transferred 283 acres of this land to those sons. John Robinson had this house built sometime in the 1780s. The house was probably like a middle-class home, 2 stories, made of granite. In the 1790 census, Robert Sr., John, and Robert Jr. are all listed as living next to each other in this area. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, nothing is really known about the house or its owners from 1790 to 1850. So there's about a 60-year gap. So there's definitely an opportunity for some more research to be done in that period. By 1850, a man by the name of Matthew Wallace owned this land. Now he owned a plantation called White House, which is about 2 miles southeast of here. So by this point in time, this house was a part of that plantation, and it was probably inhabited by some tenants of Wallace. In 1852, Matthew Wallace willed the house to his son, Albert Wallace. Albert was part of the Civil War. He served in the 37th Infantry of the North Carolina Company. 10 years later, in 1862, Albert sold a 75 tract of land, including the house, to a man by the name of Wesley Griffin. And shortly after this, Wesley Griffin sold the house to a man named Robert Simpson. And in 1871, Robert Simpson sold the house to a man named George Jordan. So within a short period of time, it went through a lot of owners. That kind of makes me wonder, in that period from 1790 to 1850, did it really go through that same amount of owners, like a lot of owners? I don't know. But George Jordan owned this house until his death in 1899. After his death, his widow, Mary, willed the house and the property on to her 3 children. Now, by this point, none of the children lived on the house, so no one ever lived in this house ever again. And shortly after, the children received the property. They sold the property to a former sheriff of Mecklenburg County in 1900, a man by the name of N.W. Wallace. After that, the house fades from record, it fades from memory. For nearly 100 years, for 81 years actually. That's when a team, an archaeology team of historians from UNC Charlotte, found the ruins.
What year?
So when was the land sold to the?
Oh, it was in 1900. It was sold to the sheriff, N.W. Wallace.
No, to the when they become a park.
Oh, okay. That's a good. In 1979, that's when the city of Charlotte bought all this land, including the land where these ruins are, incorporated a Reedy Creek Park. So that's 1979.
All right.
And 2 years later, that's when these ruins were rediscovered. Unfortunately, in the winter of 1987, a big tree fell on it during a storm.
Oh.
And it destroyed most of the original structure, including the roof, most of the walls.
What happened with the furniture?
Yeah, you can see the trees over there. Yeah, I'm sure the furniture was probably long gone at that point. But yeah, unfortunately, the only part you can see is the southeast corner right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But yep, and a little more information on the house. It was approximately 33 by 29 square foot. Any of you familiar with the Alexander Hezekiah house?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, a little smaller than that. Last time I gave this tour, I had a couple questions. I just gotta warn you, if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but I might not be able to. But I'll do my best if I'm not able to answer, to ask someone else to get the answers for the next time. So I know there were 2 questions I was able to answer last time. One is, where was the quarry where all this granite for the house came from? Talked to a friend, Bill, who's a historian who works for UNC Charlotte. He doesn't know of any like actual granite quarry that was around at that point. He thinks there were a lot of like random granite boulders in the area that they could have gotten the granite from. The other question that I was asked is, where was the closest road to here? He believes it was like around 2985. That was like an old colonial road, like an old wagon road. So probably around there.
Didn't they have livestock?
Like here?